This is America's most powerful fighting force ever, not only able to reach a maximum speed equivalent to 10 times the speed of sound, but also equipped with the most advanced weapons and defense system. But I still haven't found a suitable pilot who can maximize that extreme speed, because once Dara reaches that speed, the pilot is also affected by very high air pressure. If it's serious, he can die. Right on the spot, right when all the experiments felt helpless, a man named Mavis appeared. He was America's strongest pilot at that time. To not make the experiments unemployed, he agreed drive defied wearing a special flight suit. After a short warm-up time, he sat on the Dia after the engine started. The Dia flew into the sky at breakneck speed, but what Pitt didn't know was that this was actually a battle. The test flight was banned. The Major General quickly arrived and ordered Pitt to stop immediately. Fortunately, the quick-witted Pitt deliberately spoke in a jerky voice, pretending the signal was unstable to pretend he didn't hear what he said. Not long after, to reach a cool speed, but when the speed reached 9.8 m, the temperature of the plane began to increase and could crash at any time. Who would have thought that Pitt was still speeding up? Everyone was sweating because of him. Come on, honey, come on, honey, come on. All the staff were very happy. Put Pitt on the Dark Star still had no intention of turning back. He still accelerated. As soon as the speed reached a 0.4 max, the plane began to make a loud alarm sound. Now communication is completely cut off. Fortunately, the only person who shot down 3 enemy planes in the last 40 years who forced Dark Star to land Pitt was given a stern warning by his superiors right when the Major General was about to ban the plane from flying Pitt. A phone call came just in time for the Major General to send him to the Pacific Fleet. It turned out that a former teammate of Pitt had been promoted to commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. He called Pitt to reinforce him, because the U.S. military recently discovered an illegally built uranium oil factory. The Department of Defense ordered them to quickly destroy it, but the factory was hidden very well deep in a mountain range and had many systems. Surface-to-air missile defense system around. There are even 5th generation's fighter aircraft X-57, and some armed fighters must accurately drop at least 2 ballistics 2 at a time. 4 fighters flew out of the canyon in a vertical direction, appearing within surface-to-air missile range. Even if it successfully climbed on the way back, it would have to engage enemy aircraft. After learning that only 3 weeks to train, Pitt was always full of confidence and wasn't too sure about this mission. But what surprised him was that he had no intention of letting participate directly in the mission, but instead asked him to do it. The pilot training instructor had no choice but to follow orders. Who knew the next day he would meet the person he didn't want to see the most in the training team? He was the son of Pitt teammates Gus. Previously, due to a mistake during a mission, W heroically sacrificed his life to protect Pitt. His last words to Pitt were that he did not want his son to become a pilot. Pitt training career son began. He said he threw away a bunch of lesson plans for tied shoes because he believed that practice brings real knowledge. His first class was to conduct simulation training for student. Pitt asking student to do working in pairs. 2 people fight side by side. If one of them is shot down, they will fail. Of course, they can also protect, with the loser having to do 200 push-ups. Surely you have never seen a cool uncle. So amazing, nearly 60 years old, and still able to make the young pilots cry. When combat training started, all the pilots mocked them because they were all the best in their area, so they considered normally Pitt. But soon, the first group of cadets noticed something was wrong. Pitt made them feel short of breath. They didn't expect him to fly through the gap between the 2 planes, and this broke the formation of Rooster and his teammates. Pitt soon saw Rooster failed, so he had to do push-ups, and the team members laughed at him. He was a young chicken. But after that, those pilots couldn't laugh anymore because of people. The only student who was able to overcome Pitt 2 moves, nicknamed Hangman, saw that he was about to aim for Pitt to win. Pitt suddenly flew straight up. Seeing that, Hangman had to chase after him. He did not expect the dazzling sunlight to make him uncle to do so. Opened his eyes when he opened his face. Pitt circled behind him. After this battle, no student dared to laugh at Pitt anymore. Anyway, the gap between the 2 sides was not just half a star. Then Pitt started the show in the fierce training process. Members not only have to simulate hundreds of experimental aircraft following mountain orbits, but are also constantly required to accelerate to break through their physical limits, especially their teammate's son Rooster. Pitt also took care of him more carefully, to force him to back down. But what Pig didn't expect was that no matter how hard he tried, Rooster still gritted his teeth, persistent. This made Pitt a little surprised. After San found out about this, he specially invited Pitt out to confide in him to convince Pitt to stop targeting Rooster. Gus' death wasn't his fault. It's been a long time, so it's time to finally let go. After a fight, intense ideological structure that it was an impossible task, not to mention whether the pilot himself could withstand the high pressure of 9 hours of high-speed descent. Even if a miracle happened, they could not be sure that 4 planes would hit target at the same time. But Pitt insisted that the new recruits, who had been trained for 2 weeks, overcome their physical limits, because once on the battlefield, They not only had to carry out bombing mission, but also had to avoid interception by aero, surface-to-air and enemy aircraft at the same time, so pit requirements for pilots were not the highest, only higher. Unexpectedly, at this time, accidents occurred and many students failed in the first step of the round. Most of them couldn't stand the pressure and couldn't hit the target anymore due to the high pressure, so they fainted. Luckily, she regained consciousness in time and jumped out of the cockpit to save her life. Shows that Pitt did not fulfill his responsibilities. His superiors quickly suspended his mission. After all, losing a plane is okay. If you lose an essential pilot during training, it will be a huge loss for the new instructor. Lower the speed standard to the minimum level. Only need to complete the task within 4 minutes to pass. But this also caused students to question that reducing the speed can indeed make it easier for them to complete the task. But if so, it will be very difficult for them to escape the pursuit of enemy aircraft. At this time, a plane suddenly started practicing, which was unexpected when Pet wanted to risk his life. Set the time limit to 2 minutes 15 seconds. This is a scene that men feel very excited after watching because he is so crazy about the training task that must be completed within 4 minutes. Young pilots cannot complete it. Unexpectedly, he was able to complete it in 2 minutes and 15 seconds to know that in this part of the training, the pressure they had to endure was up to 900 kilograms, which is like having an elephant sit on him. This also means that he not only had to brace himself, not to faint, but also to aim at the target to bomb them. Pitt has proven himself in his own way that he can not only endure high pressure for up to 10 hours to complete the job, but also quickly 10 more seconds than expected. Pitt's success increased the fighting spirit in everyone. The superiors had to agree to let him continue as a coach and immediately appointed him as a combat captain. There was no more suitable candidate than him. A few days later, it was time to attack the pit, and Rooster forgot about the old thing, forming a fighting team with 2 other pilots moving forward together. The 4 planes crashed into the canyon like a dragon. They had 2.5 minutes to complete the mission. Fortunately, the intense training of the past time was not in vain with the precise strike of the 4 missiles. The people in the base applauded, but at this time, the 5th-generation fighter aircraft Su-57 was chasing after. The Su-57 performance was even higher than their fighter aircraft. Not long after, their missiles were aimed at the squad. Seeing this, they immediately ordered him to fly, go up and release the second bait, save a life. But then another missile aimed at him. But this time he no longer had the scent of bait. In desperation, he grabbed his body to support him. It seemed like he had returned the favor to his old friend. Luckily, he jumped out in time to land on Tuet, so he was lucky to survive. But as soon as he stood up, he saw a plane shooting money at him. Pitt had nowhere to run in the moment of danger. A missile destroyed the helicopter. The weapon turned out to be the Rooster, who flew back, but then he was also shot down by the missile. He quickly ran to the place where the Rooster fell after seeing that he was fine, planning to steal the 4th-generation fighter plane F-14 to escape even though the airport was destroyed. But with their technology, they controlled the speed and took off successfully. Unfortunately, the 2 still did not have time to contact the ministry. Commander, it was discovered that Pitt intended to pretend to be one of their people to ignite the fire, but the enemy, at a glance, already knew the inside story and turned to attack the Pitt group. There was no other choice but to fight, even though Pitt F-14 appeared. It can be called an antique, but with his techniques, Pitt divided high and low with the X-57 and skillfully used the enemy ballistic to shoot down 2 fighter planes. Seeing that Rooster had contacted the mother ship and was preparing, turned back. But in the middle of the road, someone jumped out to block the way. Another, thinking they were going to die here, they thought Hangman would arrive in time to rescue them. The 2 then used a barrier to land on the ship mother. This seemingly impossible mission was completed without the royal family. This is the end of the movie. Everyone watching, remember to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next movie. Bye.